In today's episode of Today in World War II, February 14th, the Finns begin withdrawing from the Mannerheim Line. Hitler meets with the Yugoslavian Prime Minister. The Japanese commit horrible atrocities off of Singapore. Speaking of Singapore, the Japanese troops were able to penetrate the main defense line in Singapore. Rommel introduces the U.S. Army to the Africa Corps in the Kasserine Pass. SHAEF, the supreme headquarters of the Allied Expeditionary Force, establishes its headquarters in England. And finally, the first Messerschmitt 262 jet fighter squadron is formed, and it wins the title of Too Little, Too Late. Let's get started. Okay, on February 14th, 1940, Finnish troops begin to withdraw from the Mannerheim Line. At this point, they're just withdrawing from the one section, the Lahti sector of the line, but let's put it this way, the Mannerheim Line is its days are numbered, okay? Um, like for example, the Soviets were using the heavy fist with their like 400 artillery pieces, and they retook the Kiev-Maki fort on Taipale River. So it was just a matter of time. Like I said, every single day that we're going to see now for the next 2 weeks or so, it's leading to, they're going to have to sign an armistice or they're going to get conquered. It's very sad. Um, it's very sad too that I have to keep repeating myself after, the first section of every video that you subscribe to my channel. But you know what? I have to. I have to be consistent. I know that there's new people every day who find my videos, and I want to make sure they have the same message. Please subscribe to my channel, become a subscriber, because it really helps me and it helps my channel grow. And it doesn't cost you anything. Just 10 seconds to click subscribe and click the bell that you'll get notified whenever I drop a video. It's that simple. On February 14th, 1941, Hitler met with the Prime Minister of Yugoslavia. He's still trying at this point, still trying to get Yugoslavia to join his tripartite pact. He wanted to get the Balkans in line because he knew that within March, April, May, June, 4 months, he was going to invade the Soviet Union, and he wanted to make sure that his Balkan flank was secure. Bulgaria joined, Romania joined. Yugoslavia did not join yet. They had to have some heavy measures before they did, and it wasn't really actually them because well, we'll find out later, here in upcoming videos. Spoiler alert, they're gonna get invaded by Hitler. But right now, he's still trying to convince them. He's using the carrot, and the stick's gonna come later. So, Yugoslavians, they were a tough nut to crack, especially the Serbs. Um, so you should not be a tough nut to crack, frankly. What you should do is you should like this video and you should leave a comment because just by doing those two very small things, that helps the most to drive engagement, and the algorithm rewards engagement. So if you want to help me grow this channel, that's the best way you can do so. Thank you. This is a very sad moment. February 14th, 1942. A British ship was trying to escape Singapore. They had 300 people on board, including 22 Australian nurses. They were bombed off Sumatra. They had made it to the Dutch East Indies. There were about 100 survivors. They were able to reach shore at Banca Island. Well, what happened? What do you think happened? The Japanese got them, right? And what did the Japanese do? Well, they marched the men away and were bayoneted and shot. The women were bayoneted where they laid, and the nurses were herded into the sea, the ocean, and they were machine gunned one by one. Uh, there was one nurse that was able to survive. Her name was Sister Vivian Bullwinkle. She was wounded, but she survived to tell the story. And she lived a long life, 85 years old. But my gosh, what a horrific thing. And once again, how horrible the Japanese were in this war. They were just horrible. It doesn't stop now. I'll give you another one here, okay? I'm sorry if this sounds like atrocity porn, but I have to, you know, educate you on what happened. It's important. February 14th, 1942, Japanese troops penetrated the main defense line in Singapore. It was being manned by the 1st Malay Brigade, and they penetrated through the lines far enough to where they reached the Alexandra Barracks Hospital. There's about 323 hospital staff and patients. I'll give you two guesses about what happened, and if you guessed horribly massacred, yeah, you're right. They would be horribly, the patients, the staff, they would all be massacred. Meanwhile, commander of Singapore garrison, Percival, he requested from General Wavell, who was now in charge of the Indo, the East, what do you call it, the Pacific, East Pacific, or is it, yeah, is it West Pacific theater, India, Burma, Singapore, so on and so forth. He said no, no, not yet, but the surrender was coming. Okay, let's put it that way. On February 14th, 1943, the green, unbloodied, untested American troops, they got their first taste of the Africa Corps when Rommel and his Africa Corps launched a surprise attack against Allied defenses in Tunisia. He rightfully calculated that the Americans would be low-hanging fruit. They needed time to get used to warfare, and it was a let's put it this way, it was the major defeat for the Americans there, um, but it was expected. Nobody expected at this point in time that the American troops were going to go in there and act like the veterans they would become. They needed to go through North Africa. They needed to go through Sicily and Italy before they or in the invasion of Normandy. I mean, the way they fought in the Battle of the Bulge, for example, and the way they broke out, the way they fought in Normandy, and so on and so forth. I mean, that was what, 2 years later. They needed to go through this process, and they became an amazing fighting force. But I dare say the Brits weren't that great against the Germans in 1940 either. Okay. So this is just a process, and I'm not trying to, sugarcoat the defeat. Yeah, it was a bad defeat. But you know what? Rommel, it was just like a couple of flurries and then retreat back to his corner because he couldn't take advantage of it. He couldn't move into Algeria. He had the Eighth Army in his back, Montgomery. So, it was a learning lesson, let's put it that way, for the Americans. On February 14th, 1944, SHAEF, the Supreme Headquarters of the Allied Expeditionary Force, is going to be, fighting on the French countryside after the invasion of Normandy. They established its headquarters in England, obviously United Kingdom, and they're in a flurry of preparation right now to get ready for the invasion. It's crazy what they went through. Um, can you imagine the minutia that had to be planned to orchestrate this cross-channel invasion? Compare it to the fiasco the Germans went through in 1940 when they were contemplating invading England from the Channel after they had defeated the French. It just goes to show you that they really didn't have much of a chance to invade England at the time. I mean, maybe if they had, been able to establish local air superiority, possibly, but they still had the Royal Navy there to be able to, take out those barges. So it was always gonna be, a very dicey situation. But you look at what I mean, they were creating artificial ports for God's sake, to supply to make sure they got their equipment in the troops into Normandy. So that was they were certainly earning their paychecks. Let's put it that way. And finally, on February 14th, 1945, the Luftwaffe formed the very first jet fighter squadron of two Me-262 fighters. But look at the date, okay? February 14th, 1945. They surrender at the end of April. So what a waste. And as I've said in previous videos, they flew the very first prototype of the ME-262 jet in 1941. Imagine how different things would have been on the Western Front if the Germans had been able to mass produce these fighters and were able to reestablish air superiority over uh, not just the homeland, Germany, but also France, over the English Channel, over England itself. Would there have been an invasion in 44? Don't know. What a blunder Hitler said or committed by not giving this a total priority. Well, thank you, Hitler, for being stupid. Thank you for watching this video. I appreciate it, and I will see you tomorrow.